Welcome back to another episode of the Dunwoody Dialogues. You know what this is all about. We bring in people that are, well, from the area or Dunwoodians or just great people that we think that you'll find interesting and could give you a little new information. So go check out our past interviews. Page down and check those interviews out. Today, we have a UGA legend with us. Now, you're probably thinking, what football player, what basketball player, these days baseball players, could we have in the office? Well, we have a different UGA legend. Welcome, Brandon Adams from DawgNation. Welcome.
I tell you what, it's so great to be here. You know, this is something I think you and I have been talking about doing for a long time, Mark, and fun to get a chance to do this. We obviously love being essentially neighbors here where we do our show every day, and fun to talk about the community we get a chance to share.
This is so cool. So how did you end up with the initials BA as your name? Because I hear people saying BA, even on the show. People are talking to you, they say, hey, BA. Your listeners actually type in on Facebook, BA, what about this?
And I really like it. I kind of like having a nickname just because I feel like it makes the relationship I have with people more, casual. And really going back to the time and I was in high school, I've always kind of been known as BA. What's funny, my brother, who also worked for a long time in Dunwoody, his name is Britton, and so people also called him BA as well. I guess growing up, we just didn't have very creative people in our community. My brother and I both essentially had the same nickname, BA, but to this day, people pretty quickly just start calling me that, and I enjoy that. Like, I want people to feel like they know me or feel like they can be relaxed around me, and I think a good nickname is sort of a good way to do that.
Yeah, that's good. You do kind of make that your own because you kind of refer to yourself as third person every once in a while as BA, and there's nothing wrong with that. But
well, also as a child of the 80s, that's back when like the A-Team was on TV and like B.A. Baracus played by Mr. T was on.
Oh, that's right.
And so if you're obviously a good bit younger than me, that doesn't mean anything to you, but that meant a lot to people my age when we were a kid. And so there was sort of an extra cool thing about BA related to that. And I'm not got anything to do with 2024, but sometimes when I hear that name, I sort of think about being a big tough guy like Mr. T, which I probably am not.
So for those of you who don't watch DawgNation, I just want to catch up on this. DawgNation is its own website, DAWG Nation, all together. Go check it out. It's everything about Georgia athletics. Well, let me put it this way. My opinion, it's probably 80% football, 20% everything else. And I think you're trying to add more of the 20% as it works, baseball and basketball.
Well, it's certainly been fun this year because the Georgia baseball team has had such a good run.
Yeah.
And obviously, having that kind of success, of course, there's going to be more room to talk about that kind of thing. I mean, listen, this is a state that loves its footballs. There's always going to be, that conversation about football. But, man, they were one game away from the College World Series. I think college baseball as a sport is kind of growing in popularity.
Yeah.
And so I think there's room to talk about more of those sports as they continue just to be, a lot more popular and just getting kind of a lot more attention from even the media beyond just DawgNation.
That's good. So you started DawgNation in your basement, it sounds like, in 2015 doing a podcast. Mm-hmm. Is your basement reference accurate?
Yeah, so it really is. Now, there's always a little bit of a true story behind the legend. So
sure.
This is one of those. The very first episodes we ever did were in a radio studio in Midtown. Okay. And so, they were kind enough to let us come there, let us do that. But there came a point somewhere as 2015 was turning into 2016 where that wasn't going to be a good fit anymore. They just needed the space back. They had been really gracious to let us be there, but they kind of needed their space back. And so at that point in time, okay, well, I needed a new home and a new place to be able to do the show. And that's where doing the show from my home in a closet really did become a true thing.
Wait, hold on. Was it a closet? Was it your basement?
No, it's a closet. So back then we didn't have a basement. Back then, it was a closet. And so it's kind of one of those deals where my wife had her closet and I had my closet in the bedroom.
Oh, she did her own podcast?
And she did her own podcast as well. That's right. But what we ended up having to do is kind of combine into one closet. She was kind enough to sort of truncate down her wardrobe, I guess, a little bit. And we took one of the closets, took the shelves out. I went to one of the big box stores, bought a bunch of mattress covers. Don't ever do this. This is the most dangerous thing in the world. So flammable. Don't ever do this. So we stapled a bunch of mattress covers to the wall to try to muffle the sound a little bit because I was always worried about echoes, things like that. And so we had this closet filled with mattress covers, the most flammable thing on the planet. And it was in there that I would do the show every day. And so for a long time, kind of right there in our bedroom, kind of staring at this sort of bland beige colored mattress cover, I would do the show. And it was around, I guess probably August of 2016 that we moved here to Dunwoody, and then we've kind of been in we've moved around buildings around this space since then, but from about August of 2016 to the present day, I've been kind of right here in this area.
That's so cool. Now, before you did DawgNation, what did you do? You had to have been in broadcasting in some way.
So I was doing a lot of what I would think of as, like, say, traditional media, a lot of local sports radio, a little bit of TV, and it was one of those deals where I was doing enough to at least get the attention of the folks who were starting DawgNation. And so they knew of me. They knew I was a Georgia fan. They knew I had some media experience. And what they did not know is that I had really been wanting to kind of focus a little bit more on kind of one thing. My theory has always been that if you want to broaden your reach, you got to narrow your focus. You've got to really become sort of known for one thing if you want to be known at all. And so I was kind of doing a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and I was enjoying it. It was kind of cobbling together and equaling some sort of, I guess, life. But I knew I had greater potential, and I knew to reach that potential, I was going to have to develop the word that you hear a lot. I was going to have to have a niche. And Georgia football was my most, I guess, believable niche, because it is something from the time I was a little boy, I've always loved Georgia football. So I'd always kind of wanted to be more involved in the Georgia football space, and it just so happened DawgNation provided opportunity. Like, it is a master stroke of luck, or however, blessing, whatever you want to call it. It's just amazing how that fell into place for me in a way that you almost can't put into words just how perfect that timing was.
Well, I'm going to tell you what, I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who know Georgia football extremely well that would love to do what you're doing. So I think that you hit that right on the head. Really interesting to me how this brand has grown from literally your closet to the Cox headquarters and a full-on studio, and now you're doing live, and it's really cool. And I think it's really impressive that you do this every single day. All right, so you love this job.
I do.
And you've seen this all the time. You've seen a coach go from one team to another. They become very good at one spot, and they're always in the team colors. They are 100% committed until that other job shows up. So what happens when the Gators call you and they say, hey, man, we want you to come down here for double pay. Could you go do this for the Gators?
Well, first of all, if I tried to
double pay,
talk about...
Did I tell you it was double pay?
Yeah, double pay. Listen... if I ever try to talk about another team other than Georgia, I don't think it's going to come across as particularly believable, because a lot of these teams, including, as I like to call them, the lousy stinking Gators, they don't. Listen, I think people would be able to tell that I don't quite, have much of an affinity for them. But, like, in all seriousness, the best thing about my job is the fact that, you talk about the way in which the brand has grown. The way I believe that's happened has always been really important to me. Is they've given us the freedom to do things that make what we do at DawgNation more than, like, I always kind of think of it as like sort of flat two-dimensional, or sort of more vivid three-dimensional. They've always allowed DawgNation to be what I would think of as like kind of a three-dimensional thing, where it's not just a website that you read, or a show that you listen to, or a video that you watch. It's a real person that you get a chance to meet. And so, we're sitting here talking to each other right now, and I'm always around DawgNation sort of looking for creative ways that we can create that opportunity for the people who want it. And some people are just busy, they don't get a chance to experience that. But for the people who want it, to be able to connect with us and do an event, or be a part of a thing, or just sort of feel like if you want more than just the regular content, there's a way to have that, really build that community. And for me, what that means is, the first step is, okay, well, if I'm doing a show, then you want to connect with the audience. And if the audience likes you, maybe they feel connected back to you. But the moment that I sort of knew that DawgNation had a chance to be a thing that could have some staying power and stand the test of time is when I saw it go beyond just me connecting to the audience connecting back with me. When I saw audience member connect with audience member, and people were forming a bond with each other because of this big umbrella that we were hopefully putting, together for DawgNation. That's when I really, had the most gratifying professional experience of my life. People making friends with each other because of kind of gathering around the stuff that we were putting out. But also it just kind of works from a business standpoint too, because, people can always have room in their life for a little more community, always have room in their life for a little bit more connection, especially around a shared, enjoyed, pastime like Georgia football. And so
even a passion.
A passion, right, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so because, to go back to the original question, because my people, who everybody's got bosses, I have them too, because they've been so willing to let us explore creative ways to do that, as hard as it might be to believe, even for like twice the money, I don't know that I'd want to do anything else, or do it somewhere else, because it'd be hard to match that level of fun and enjoyment.
All right. Well, that's good. I just wanted you to know, because I did get a call right before the show. The Gators need a good host, so I'll let them know you're not
the
interested.
Gators right now need a lot more than just a good host. I can tell you that. They need a lot more than just that.
That's right. Okay, so I used to do some work around the Southeastern Conference, and back in the day knew a little bit of this information. I'm just kind of curious. You have probably met a lot of the SEC coaches, haven't you?
I've met a good number, I guess. Especially over the course of years. Some of them not active anymore, but over the course of years, I've met a good number of them.
All right. So which one's the biggest jerk?
Who has been the...
Let's leave Florida alone.
Yeah, we'll leave them out of this here a little bit. Who has been the biggest jerk?
Because this was always a fun thing to talk about for the people that were in and around the SEC. Because some coaches had, like, I'll give you an example of someone that walked on water.
Yeah.
Mark Richt.
Yeah.
Everybody loved that guy.
Right.
And then there were others that always rubbed wrong.
So I don't know that I would say this makes him a jerk, but I will tell you this, is that there was a thing about, the brief interactions I would have with, like, say, Nick Saban. And once again, this is not I wouldn't say this is a criticism of him, or I wouldn't say this sort of made him a jerk, but there was a thing about Saban, also hearing from people who maybe know him, better than I did too, where you didn't quite feel like you were getting the same level of authenticity from him that you do from some of the other coaches in the SEC. Certainly a guy like Mark Richt, perhaps a guy like Kirby Smart, there as well. And maybe that's just sort of a natural byproduct of that level of success. Like maybe once you achieve a certain level of success, sort of being a normal person just becomes an
hard.
impossible task.
Yeah.
But there was always a part of, like, when you would either be in the same room with Nick Saban or sort of observe Nick Saban, there was something about him that didn't quite feel like the same level of sort of human normalcy that you get from some other coaches.
I think that, and I think Kirby got some of the drive that Kirby has. I mean, that Nick had. So, for example, and I use this oftentimes in business, where Kirby wants to win a national championship, and he looks at every decision on that, like that plateau. And for example, if I'm going to buy this coffee cup, will it help me win a national championship? Right. Yeah. If we do these Dunwoody stickers, is it going to help me win a national championship? And I think he probably got that being in the Saban space. And I just think Saban was so corporate, if you will, to use that word, this is what I am, and he stayed within those walls. It's part of what made him so effective. It probably was hard to be around that, though.
I would imagine at times it was. And I've also always sort of said this. It's like, in addition to doing the show, I am legitimately a Georgia fan, so I want Georgia to have as much success for as long as it possibly can. I like the fact that Kirby has friends. Mike Bobo, Will Muschamp, these other coaches who now also in some form or fashion work at Georgia. But these are like guys that he's friends with. Even, guys on the periphery like Lane Kiffin or somebody like that. It seems like they have a pretty warm relationship with each other. To me, having friends keeps you grounded. And I do really think that a huge level of fame and a huge level of sort of financial success, I do think that can make you pretty weird if you're not careful. But friends sort of keep you from being that way. And so when you hear these stories sometimes of, like, these guys, kind of busting each other's chops in a text thread or something like that, as someone who wants Kirby to have as much longevity as he can possibly have, having a group of friends that sort of feels the same way it did maybe when you're back in college, I think there's probably something about that probably gives him some additional staying power and keeps him from becoming as weird as some very successful people in a lot of different fields could possibly be.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. All right, so I got the Georgia schedule here somewhere. Here it is. So here's the schedule.
Okay.
This is just so brutal. Clemson, actually, I don't know, it's going to be so hard. Clemson, Tennessee Tech, Kentucky, Alabama, Auburn, Mississippi State, Texas, Florida, of course, Ole Miss, Tennessee, UMass, Georgia Tech, and maybe the SEC championship. We'll put that on there. That's on the schedule. Which game are they going to lose?
So I do believe, because of how challenging that schedule is, that an 11-1 record is more likely than a 12-0 record.
Right,
We've
I
seen
agree.
Georgia go undefeated, the last 3 regular seasons. So it'd be a big deal to lose a regular season game, something they have not done since
And I
2020.
did do home and away.
That's right.
Two of those games are both away. Alabama and Texas are both away.
And the Ole Miss game in November on the road, that's also pretty challenging too, based on where they're expected to be ranked. But while I do believe it's likely that Georgia loses a game, I don't know that I would say that it's likely it's any one game on the schedule. Here's what I believe. Because of the challenging nature of it, as Georgia kind of rolls through, I think there's a little bit of a tax you have to pay week to week to week. It takes a lot to beat a Texas. Maybe you do it, but it takes something out of you.
Right.
Then you kind of roll into other games where you're just a little less than you were before, either physically, mentally, or whatever. I also think that when you look at the games in the Georgia schedule, they're going to get a little less attention than the 3 we just mentioned. The odds are, whether it be, maybe a Tennessee, perhaps, possibly an Auburn, but
Seeing Auburn is the week after. I think that's a week after. After Alabama.
Yeah,
that could be a gotcha game.
So that's what you look for. You look for those consecutive weeks where you're playing those kinds of games, realizing that somebody's probably a surprise team. Someone's probably going to be better than their preseason projections suggest right now. And I just think it's the sheer magnitude of the entirety of the schedule that catches up at some point in time. So you asked me to give you a game. I don't know that I would give you any specific opponent, but if you asked me to give you a month, this is a loss, I believe, far more likely to occur like in a November more so than a September, early part of October. If I had to guess, that's my best guess here. Very hard to go undefeated against this schedule. There was an SEC coach the other day, Jeff Levy from Mississippi State, who said he didn't know if anybody in the SEC would go undefeated. He could be right about that. But if a loss does come for Georgia, now there's still going to be a point spread favorite in every game. But if a loss does come for Georgia, I think it kind of comes in sort of a weird week. Maybe you don't expect it, more so than one of these bigger games that on paper people seem to already have certain.
That's such a good point. They play at Texas. They get the next week off. That's nice. Then they play Florida, Ole Miss, Tennessee, and UMass and Tech all in November.
This is also one of those weird calendar anomalies when there are 5 Saturdays in November this year, and so therefore it creates 2 off weeks during the schedule. Most college football seasons only have 1 off week, but because of the number of Saturdays in the fall is longer. Thanksgiving's later this year, I guess. Because of that, there are actually 2 off weeks on the schedule.
Yeah, and they always get the week before Florida off, so just Florida. Right. All right, so let's shift gears. How do you think DeBoer is going to be able to keep Alabama in the stratosphere?
I think that it's easier at the beginning than it will be as you head towards the end.
We saw that at LSU.
That's exactly right. Yeah. That if you said that Kalen DeBoer's tenure at Alabama is about as long as the typical SEC coach's is, which I'm guessing is probably somewhere in like the 5-year range. I'm guessing the average tenure for an SEC coach is probably about 5 years. If you said that DeBoer's got 5 years at Alabama for whatever reason, I would bet that the most successful year is the first year. He does have college football playoff experience as a coach. His quarterback, Jalen Milroe, was also in the college football playoff a year ago. There's still a good bit of talent left over in this roster because of what Nick Saban brought in. So as we get closer to the season, I'm probably a little more, a little higher on Alabama than I would have been when the news about Saban's retirement first came out. But if Kalen DeBoer is able to kind of play at a 12-team playoff level here this year, I think as he kind of gets his own players in and some of that Alabama talent that Saban brought in cycles out, at that point in time, I think it actually gets a little harder for him. So it could be easier at the onset and more difficult for him as that time goes on.
Interesting. Yeah, that's good to know. All right, so we're sitting here, beginning of August. We got a big game coming up against Clemson. I mean, that's a neutral site here in Atlanta. One of the things that we like to talk about here in Dunwoody is that we'd love for people to stay in our Dunwoody hotels because we're right on the MARTA line. There is a station right here in Dunwoody. Sure. We have 9 hotels, 2,100 rooms. So we always like to talk about you could stay in Dunwoody in a family-friendly environment with shopping and restaurants and really a good walkable area, and then go downtown. I'd love to know what you think. Is that a real thing, or do you think we're like, people want to stay downtown? What is your opinion?
We've talked about this on DawgNation Daily plenty of times there as well. One of my favorite things with the people we get a chance to partner with is the fact that I get to tell stories about stuff that I do truly believe in and things that I really enjoy myself. And I've stayed in the Dunwoody hotels. I eat these Dunwoody restaurants all the time, especially bringing clients, things like that. Get a chance to have a nice lunch or nice dinner. I never turn that down. Of course, I want to be able to enjoy that. And I do believe from the convenience standpoint, the chance to kind of get a little bit outside the hustle and bustle of the city,
sure,
and enjoy, the good, welcoming, family-friendly environment, very relaxing, comfortable hotels, delicious restaurants from a different kind of, you want the high-end steakhouse, you want the farm-to-table type cuisine, you want something in between all that. You have a variety of different cuisines, and I just think that the pace is really enjoyable for people. So when I encourage people around the SEC championship or the season kickoff game coming up against Clemson, or who knows, January for the national championship, perhaps.
Oh my goodness! So there's potential 4 games for
Georgia
could
play 4 games in Atlanta this year, at least possibility. But when we have those things come up, I always love reminding people about what's happening here in Dunwoody, because I do think using the MARTA as transportation to Atlanta is just as convenient. I would say even more so than perhaps kind of staying Midtown, Buckhead, places like that, where
right.
The cost is going to be perhaps a lot higher, and just the level of hustle and bustle around some of that, it's perhaps maybe more than you want to deal with. But if you want to come into Atlanta, have the experience in town for the game, and then sort of get comfortably outside of that
without fighting
for
traffic.
When it's all said and done, to me, Dunwoody's always going to be a great option.
That's
for that
a cool
for people.
thing. Yeah, we're here on the cusp also of High Street opening, and that's right over there beside your building. In fact, your old offices were right there. I think High Street's going to rip those things down, but there's entertainment over there between Putt Shack. We have something called Hampton Social going in. There's a Velvet Taco over there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of entertainment, which is something we're excited about in Dunwoody. We have great shopping.
Yeah.
We've always had great restaurants. Getting some entertainment things to do is a really exciting thing. Jaguar Bolero. I don't even have an earpiece, and I just thought of that. All these things are in High Street, so people can have some fun things to do here in Dunwoody while they're in town and go down and see the game.
Well, I also think this is kind of a cool trend just in general, where if I want to think about when I was a good bit younger, being in the Atlanta area meant, okay, well, I'm going to do this here, then I'm going to drive a half an hour and go do entertainment, or another half hour and go have, dinner at a restaurant that I like. It seems like there has been this real pride, and I think that Dunwoody is a great example of this, where people say, hey, we want to have all of the opportunities that you need. You can live here. You can go to hotels here. You can have, like you say, entertainment experiences here. You can have delicious dinners here, great shopping experience here, and it can all happen in our little area here. And we're going to, do that. And in some cases, kind of a nice concentrated space can be really convenient to get around and do a lot of different things at one time. I think that's a cool trend in general. Mm-hmm. And I think that Dunwoody obviously does as good a job as anybody of kind of making the most out of that opportunity.
Oh, I appreciate that. That's great. BA, you and I and DawgNation, we're working on a nice little package deal, which is kind of cool, which we're really excited about. And that's, a charter bus out of Dunwoody. And so setting up this great thing where you can stay in a Dunwoody hotel, book a charter bus, and go to the tailgate. Now, we're going to take care of the Dunwoody side of the hotel, and we're going to make sure that the charter bus gets out of here. Maybe have a Dunwoody Police Department escort or not. But they're going down to the tailgate. When folks do this, what are they going to do at the tailgate?
Well, the tailgate's going to be a great experience, and I think I'm really proud of our people here on this, because when it first came down that the game was going to be a noon start, obviously Georgia fans will tell you that really cuts into your normal tailgate experience. Not as much fun as it could be, but what a great pivot from us here, because it's going to be kind of a breakfast-themed tailgate. You're going to have all like the traditional breakfast foods, the bacon, the sausage, and like pastries, all that kind of stuff. But also for the breakfast-themed cocktails, people love their mimosas. They love their Bloody Marys. We're going to have that. You want the traditional, tailgate, beverages. Of course, there's going to be some of that too. But I love the way in light of the fact that the game is a much earlier start than any of us would have expected. I love the fact that we were able to kind of create a tailgate experience that sort of matches the hours which needs to take place.
So
and also,
great.
one of the things we always love to do is we call these DawgNation invasions, in kind of invading downtown Atlanta, a DawgNation invasion t-shirt. People are going to get a chance to have that, be a part of all of this. And to think that we're coming over from Dunwoody, being there in Atlanta, obviously, I just think that's a great experience for people. You want a really fun kind of weekend away to sort of get the football season started off right. I think that's about as good as you're going to be able to get.
I think it's pretty awesome. Well, we love how the moon's aligned. We just saw that when working with Abby and the team and Lincoln. Okay, wait a minute. Hotel and a charter bus to get to downtown. It works really well because our hotels love it. We like trying to get people to stay in our hotels, and this is a nice little offering, which is and also, doing the tailgate and take the charter bus. You gonna take the bus down? Or?
I'm looking forward to it.
All right. Well, there you go. I love that. Well, I love the time that you've taken away. I think we were watching you live just a few minutes ago before we popped into the studio here. We appreciate your time, no joke. I know you're a busy guy, and this is a great way to connect with your community, which is something important to you. Let's stay connected to that community. Tell them how they can find out more about DawgNation, and maybe if they want to reach out to you, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
Well, we are every single day on all the video channels, Facebook, YouTube, the X platform, things like that. You can also reach out to me on social media. I am at DawgNation Daily. I don't have the ability to remember much more than just that name, so I'm at DawgNation Daily. You can also read about Georgia football every single day at DawgNation.com there as well. So if you look for us on a platform, you're going to probably find DawgNation. And where you find DawgNation, you'll find DawgNation Daily. Apple, Spotify for the podcast platforms. We just try to be on as many different platforms we can be on, try to create an experience for people, whichever one kind of works for them. That's where we want to be. So it's a real pleasure to get a chance to speak to you all here today.
Oh, absolutely. Love having you come over. He's just right down the street. So, getting you out of the office is the key thing.
That's right.
And we love this and love the partnership that we have with DawgNation. As a Georgia fan, and you and I talked about this before the show on the way that my son and I were able to connect with Mark Richt. It's just a class organization, and I love how we are as a brand, as a state brand. The Georgia brand itself is only getting better and better. The University of Georgia does a great job of getting our brand out there outside of the elections, and maybe we can get a couple more national championships under our belt, which will only keep that brand going.
Yeah, it's so much fun, and I encourage people all the time. This really is, if you are a Georgia fan, now if you're not a Georgia fan, you perhaps feel differently about this, but if you are a Georgia fan, this really is the glory years for the program.
Oh,
and I think
amen.
If you feel that way and you're noticing that, then your responsibility is just to soak it up and enjoy it as much as you possibly can. Now, listen, traveling to games, things like that, that's sometimes a little easier for some than others, and I totally get that. But when you have that opportunity to really, whatever that means for you, getting together with the friends and watching on TV, or traveling down to a game, whatever else, whatever that means for you, taking the time to soak that up as much as you possibly can right now, what an awesome time to be a Georgia fan. And that's what DawgNation tries to provide, a little bit of a narration for the experience of just one of the most successful eras that any of us could have ever imagined.
Yeah, and I don't think it's going to end anytime soon because we have a UGA grad as one of the best coaches in football coaching Georgia. So this may be a multi-decade party, I should say. Well, BA, thanks for being here.
Great to be here.
We really appreciate
Great to be
you. And for all of you, thank you for watching. I am Mark Galvin, your host here, and this show is produced by Discover Dunwoody. Our producer is Madison Holtz. Our sound technician is Emily Inser Gibson, and they do great job behind and sometimes you see us looking at them because they're giving us some instruction here and there. We would love for all of you to know you can get your own Dunwoody sticker. So the Dunwoody stickers are removable. You can stick them on your on anybody's car you want. In fact, when our boss Ray Yazell goes out of town next time, we're going to cover his desk with these Dunwoody stickers. But you can get a free one. All you got to do is go to City Hall, go to NFA Burger. You're welcome to go to the library, or just come right here to our office, and we'll give you one of those stickers. As always, thank you for watching. Learn more about Discover Dunwoody at our handle, Discover Dunwoody. Check out our social media. We do a great job of covering everything that goes on here in Dunwoody. Or check out our website, discoverdunwoody.com. BA, thanks again for joining us.
Great to be here.
It's good to see
Great to
you.
be here.
And to all of you, thank you for joining us, and go out and discover Dunwoody.